Hey everybody, this is Mike LaPone from Symphony X and Mike LaPone's Silent Assassins. And this is SAGAS.
Everybody, this is Corbin, the Serpentine Skipwith.
And this is Ren, the Berserker Marabou. And this is...
SAGAS.
SAGAS. Welcome.
Welcome. So, if you have already seen last week's episode, which is obviously recorded, which was released this week, but this is a pre-recording. Last week's episode number 69. Good episode to have Josh on. We had Josh Freeman, who, for those you don't know, is our merch maker. He's his band is a solo band, just him. But there's only one Elvis, and he also has a band Motown, which is a normal band. He's an all-rounder, workhorse like no other, and real chill dude. And like I said on the Facebook post, which you would have all seen, I never felt that comfortable with a guest before. It was just a nice chill time, all three of us. As Josh posted on his thing, 3 different time zones, which is pretty cool to sort out. It was a real good time. Go check it out. We talked for like almost an hour about all kinds of shit. So thank you, Josh, for coming on. It was a great time. I'm glad you enjoyed yourself. And as usual, before we continue, I'll just give a quick shout out to Morgrot. I'll keep it short and sweet this time because I post it every week. Morgrot is a physical issue, featuring interviews, reviews, horror, serial killer-esque, like imagery and content. As John Sorrell, the headmaster of all this, has an interest in all things dark and gruesome, which is pretty sick. He gives out serial killer cards for each issue that you purchase. I got Charles Manson. I forgot who I'm getting next issue, but it's a really cool thing going on. I help him with the reviews, and that's how we came together. And we are now officially collaborating, SAGAS cross Morgrot. So I'm going to put the link above. Go check it out. Next issue should be here pretty soon, and there's going to be a goth issue coming soon, which I already said I'm going to help him with. There's a whole bunch of shit going on. So, like I said, physical issue, all collaborated with SAGAS. So if you're a metalhead that loves interviews, reviews, horror, art, fucking obviously dope music, because he loves to support the independent bands out there that don't get much attention. So, he's a really down for the people kind of guy. So go check him out if you're a metalhead. And, who knows, if you're just a guy that loves twisted shit and not metal exactly, still go check him out. I'm sure he'll scratch your itch. Morgrot, check it out. So as we normally do on SAGAS, we have our guests choose the album. So this time, and if Red, if you want to do this part, because I'm afraid of fucking the name of this band, we have this band today.
Meshuggah. So, legendary Swedish extreme metal band, who formed in the most beautiful place in the world, a lovely little town called Umeå in Sweden in 1987. So this was a really cool pick from Josh. So thank you very much, Josh, to get to talk about time signatures and polyrhythms and all that fun stuff.
Well, thank you for saying that, because I would have pronounced it terribly. Now, obviously, we're going to talk first impressions. So, straight at the bat, as far as I know, maybe throughout my years, especially growing up, I listened to a lot of MTV, and there was always metal stations. So, for all I know, maybe I've listened to a single from it and not realized. But to my knowledge, this is the first time I've ever heard their music. And look, I'm going to be completely honest. When I first heard this, while I was listening to it, I should say, the first thought that came to my head was it really sucks that I have no time this week to get intoxicated, because I was so busy I didn't have time to get drunk or otherwise. And I feel like this is the kind of album that needs that kind of specific attention, because look, first impressions, it felt very clustered to me. It felt very out of place, and I feel like this is the kind of album. I feel like this is the extreme metal, and I know this is quite the stretch, but hear me out, people who might or may not be offended by this comparison, or maybe not. I don't know, but I feel like this is the extreme metal version of an album like Dark Side of the Moon, where it doesn't make sense when you're sober. I've listened to that album so many times sober, and it just doesn't hit me the same as when I'm not. When I'm not sober, it's a classic. It gives me chills. It just takes me to a whole nother realm. And I feel like this is the kind of album, and it's interesting because I've been going on Reddit, I've been Googling other people's opinions, and you got everything from someone saying Catch 33 is the shittest album to now I get why Catch 33 is considered by many their best album. So it's like there's a whole range of things there, and I feel like had I just been in the right mindset to absorb this album, I feel like I'll probably be on the positive side of things. But because I didn't have time this week to explore that part of myself with this album, I can only give my honest impressions, which are my honest sober impressions were. It felt, a bit clunky. It felt a bit weird, not in a. I mean, I don't know, weird in a. It just kind of felt disjointed, but without actually proving this yet, I can almost 100% say had I not been in my normal state of mind, I probably would have enjoyed this a lot better.
Yeah, nice. Well, I have a different first impression because I listened to the band before. Back in 2002, I bought the album Nothing. I was telling you off camera earlier, dude, and yeah, I knew what I was getting into, and I also listened to the album after this, Obscene, and Obscene was the turning point for the band for their kind of like mainstream. Bleed, or was it? Yeah, Bleed, I think it was called. You go onto the internet and you type Meshuggah Bleed, and there's all these different versions of people playing that rhythm in like kind of meme jokey ways, in like really serious kind of technical aspects of it and stuff. But it's just it kind of became its own thing. So yeah. So my first album was Nothing, and the first time I heard that, it just blew me away. I was listening to it and I was like, what the and this was back in 2002, bro. Like, kind of technical music was only in drips and drabs back then, and this was just outrageous. I was like, what the fuck am I listening to? The times back then we call that math metal, and now it's can't become gent and extreme polyrhythmic music or whatever you want to, but like it's essentially like what we would have considered math metal, because like every riff there's like numbers behind it, like if you could imagine like the it's all like these like down up like 1 2 3 4 it's very technical, but which that was a terrible description of it there, but that like basically back then that was so new, it was so fresh, and we were just like, what the fuck are we listening to? So I knew what I was getting into when I got into this album, but I didn't realize that it was their concept album, their only real concept album. And essentially it's like one song, but they had to break it up into like 13 parts. So I listened to the songs more like they're like it's like a concerto with like different parts in it, so when you listen to the album and you're looking at the names of the songs and stuff, I think the names are really arbitrary. It's not really a song per se. So when you just sit back and listen to the whole thing in one big go and one swoop and don't try and break it up, I think it works a lot better. But unfortunately, with the music industry the way it is, they had to actually put it down as tracks, or else it wouldn't have been considered a full album. So that's label contractual stuff that I think kind of ruined the concept a little bit. But the boys had to do what they had to do. Like, but I heard that they were trying to get out of this contract with this particular label, so that they actually said, "Fuck it, we'll do like one full album worth of music as one song, one piece, like." And they thought that they'd ruffle feathers or piss off the label or something, and they'd get out of it. I don't know. That's just one story I heard. But they actually sat down together, and it actually became a really like a real close to the heart passion project for them. They really got stuck in, and they don't normally sit around the desk or the computer in their context together. Usually they do parts separately. But this record, they sat around together, and they were like, this is gonna be class. So they put their full effort into it, like, and yeah. So I knew all this stuff behind my first listens of the album, but yeah, I was it is different. It is a different album to the ones before and after. I will say that. So but yeah, there's some seriously good shit on this album. Like, so that was my first impression.
Okay, firstly, not to discredit obviously anything you just said. I'm sure you know a lot more than me, but are you sure? Because I remember hearing when I was doing my research on this band, the same thing you just said about the creative process for this. I heard that's what they did on the album I. Apparently they were fucking around in the studio, one song, and then it became a passion project. I mean, it could be for this album as well, but I remember hearing the same story, and I was like, anyway, that's not the point. I just remember hearing that. Because apparently I is the same concept. It's one song or one EP. One song turned into like 3-4 songs.
I don't even know this album. Oh yeah, sorry, it's a 2004 album. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I must look into that. I completely skipped over that album. Do you know that? Because to me, it goes nothing, catch 33, and Obscene. Like, that's awesome. You've just given me a whole other Meshuggah album there, bro. Sweet.
I was just researching, but
well, there's only 4 songs on it, but yeah, it's 44 minutes long. Sweet, cool. Excellent.
Well, there you go, my present.
Wait.
So a few things that came to my mind while you were talking is, first of all, the band Sleep. The iconic band Sleep, where they had that one song that's like an hour. It just came to mind because they tried to do on this, but then they split it. Number 2, the as you were saying, how the names are just there because it has to be listed as an album. I listened to a lot of Brian Eno. He's an ambient artist. He used to be a rock band, and now he's ambient. And one of my favorite albums, which is it's called Music for Airports. It's a 4-track ambient album, and it's meant he was trying to petition it back in the 80s to play like relaxing music in airports to help with people's stress. Anyway, it's a 4-track album, and the songs are just called 1, 2, 3, 4 to not distract you. And I'm like, that's sick. Like, because I don't care. You never know what song you're on. It just is 1, 2. And the third thing I thought about was anytime I hear math rock or math metal, both I hear often. The only band I really think of when I think about the context, I don't know if you've heard of them, is the band Animals as Leaders. They're an instrumental band, and every time I think of math rock, I just think of them. Like that's one band always goes to because they're very methodical as well. But anyway, yeah. So as Ron described, it's meant to be one song, but instead of doing the badass Sleep version, fuck you guys, no, I'm joking. It's one song, but it's a continuous. So it's one song cut into 13 movements, and interestingly enough, it uses drum programming, which is a dick move to the drummer. It's like we'll just use, what do they call it? The drum kit from Hell expansion instead of traditional acoustic drums. Like imagine that you rock up to the studio. We don't need you. Go fuck yourself. No. Although performing the song live must be a sick day off for the drummer. He's just sitting there like with his beer, just just watching. But yeah, so there's no drummer. It's just an it's a drum programming expansion. And as it's described, and when you listen to it, for those who haven't, same song, kind of with different parts, different breaks, different elements to it. So like I said, sounds like a really great experience if you're not in your right mind, which isn't, I mean that in a good way. I mean that in a dark side of the moon kind of way. Or it's just like, it all makes sense when you're outer worldly. But like I said, first time listening to these guys, so unfortunately still I don't know what the drummer sounds like. I can't quote on him because he's not in here. But it's definitely an interesting album. I hear that Catch 33 is like a play on something called Catch 22, which is like a paradox or like some kind of equation, some like world equation or something. So they said Catch 33 to kind of play on words. It's a very, it's, I think look, and I mean, I'm only talking for me. I can't talk for everyone else that listens to it. But for me, because as I said at the start, this week has been very 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 busy for me. Waking up at 4:30, getting home at 6 o'clock. So like with that kind of schedule and being at work constantly, like this isn't the kind of album to like casually listen to. This isn't the kind of album where you're walking home from the bus stop trying to get home. It's not all going to work. I don't think it's that kind of album. I think it's an album that, and I'm going to try it out in later weeks. But to me, it's kind of an album where you enjoy yourself a bit with whatever your substance of choice is. Go sit down, have some quality headphones on, and just like let it take over you. Kind of like how an album like Devin Townsend Empath will do, or where you just sit back and listen to it. So that would be my first recommendation for all those who are like me and haven't heard it before. Make sure you're in a nice environment, chilling out with however you chill out, and just, as Ren said, not to worry about the song titles. They don't really mean anything. And it's interesting because, it was, when I first listened to this, I was listening to it. I had no concept of how long the songs were, nothing. I knew nothing about it, just put it on. And I was like playing the first song, and then I got a notification on my phone. So I checked my phone, and like the song was almost over. I'm like, wait, how long is this song? This can't be right. And then I went on Wikipedia, I checked the length. I'm like, oh fuck, that's right. It's real. So this album varies from like 1 minute to like 13 minutes, 7 minutes. So it's a very interesting arrangement of the one song. So yeah, my second thoughts, it's an interesting experiment for an album. And as I've heard from you and online, this and I apparently was their last times being super experimental and non-mainstream. So I'll give them credit for that. But yeah, as far as to rehash what I pretty much said the first time I talked, I just wish I was in a bit more of a chill mind state to kind of absorb this album.
Yeah, it's probably a shame that you actually were presented this as your first listen to them, because it is interesting. It is interesting where you come in on a band, what kind of idea you have of them. That's kind of really interesting. I like that. But the idea of Thomas Haake or Haake, it's Haake, Swedish. So I think it's Haake, but I'll call him Thomas. He is just an exceptional drummer, right? But the whole idea of the drum track on this is they wrote this as one big long piece, and their whole writing process is really interesting. I've not heard another band do this. So it all depends who wrote the riff. So they start off with the riff, and they have the four members of the band, and I think they have another chap that's not in the band anymore that writes riffs. And then they have this deal that whoever writes the riffs gets to program the drums to go with the riffs. And then they just go with that. They don't iron out anything. They don't question nothing. It's just, that's it. You wrote the riff, you get to program the drums, and that's the drum track. And then usually Thomas will go and he'll learn it and he'll lay it down. But this particular album being just one long song concept, and I don't know whether there was other factors there, but they just said, screw it. We'll make this the kind of like they were trying to be inventive to not have him playing on the record. So it's actually a really cool concept, a kind of idea behind this conceptual album. But there's this kind of joke that goes around about him that when he was born, the doctor turns around and said to the parents, "Congratulations, it's a metronome." As anybody knows what a metronome is, it's what keeps the time. Beep, boop, boop, boop. Because he's so solid, like he's such a incredible drummer. And he does all that lovely kicks where the feet are swiveling. Any drummers out there, it's just beautiful technique. But this is what makes this band shine above most other bands, especially in the last 20 years, and their recognition, say in the last 10 years or just over, is their proficiency on each instrument. Like, you quite literally cannot get more precise than these guys are. And like even Jans Kidman is the vocalist, and his vocals are just monstrous, like really powerful vocals. And when he's playing live, he makes this crazy face. Like I don't know if you've seen the live face, bro, but it's like he's fully possessed. I'm gonna try and attempt it. He looks down and his teeth go like this. I'm gonna look back later and I'm gonna compare. I'll get a screenshot of me and him. It's probably really bad, but he just has this really like something from like a horror movie. It's brilliant, like. And then obviously you have the two guitarists, Martin and Frederick. Frederick is the lead guitarist, and he has this really it's just his sound, this ambient lead, but it's in the background. You don't hear a lot of it on this album. There's one track that has like this really deranged sort of sound, but the rest of it, I think it was only really fully developed on the Obzen album. That's probably a bit unfair. He did do stuff on other albums, but anyway, my point is, all the boys write lyrics, all the boys write the riffs, all the boys program the drums, and all the boys mix. And that's what makes this band, like, they are so hands-on with what they do that, you know, if they were to present this to a mixing engineer, it would be like over their fucking head, man. It's just so complex, and it's only something that these boys can do because they don't sit down and try and work everything out like a maths equation. It's just stuff that they want to play. They don't try to be complex per se. It just happens for them when they're writing what they want to hear. And that's something we always talk about in the podcast. The people that write the best music are the people that write just what they want to hear, not what they think other people want to hear. And yeah, it's just brilliant that they all have such a hands-on. Thomas also does the art concept work and artwork and stuff, and he's just a super cool guy. But do you know that I find really interesting that these guys are from, like, we were on tour there a couple of months back. In one of the places we played was Umeå, and it was the nicest place in the fucking world, man. I swear. I mentioned something on the podcast last week to Josh, but I swear, man, like, literally you walk down the street, it's the safest place I've ever been. The people are uber nice, and there's no crime. There's literally no crime there. Like, people leave like those motorized bikes out on the street and nobody touches them. Could be there for weeks. And my point is that for a band that plays this music is so heavy that it's not aggressive, it's not satanic, it's just fucking heavy. And it's like, to me, listening to this band is like listening to what the darkest, blackest of space would sound like. You know, it's just like dark, man, but it's not from an angry, evil place. And when you go to the place that they formed, you realize it's like, wow, it's such a contrast between where they were to what they produce as musicians. And I was saying last week on it, just anybody that missed it, there's a guitar museum in Umeå, and they have like this section dedicated to the boys, and like this signed picture, and I think there's some of their guitars. I got distracted because the owner started chatting to me. Me and the two berserkers were in there, and he started telling the story about the guys and that they've been in here and he's met them, and they're just really cool guys. Like, and they're so humble. I mean, check this out, right? There was some humble story. Let me just try and find right, just to show how modest Thomas is, right? He was like, right, so he's regarded as like a rhythmic icon is what they call him, a rhythmic icon, because he's just so on it, right? And he says, check this for modesty, I'm just happy to be in the business. You know? It's like, I'm just happy to be in the business. I was like, yeah, you're an icon, man. So, like, you know, it just goes to show, you know, where you come from really makes, you know, who you are.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, because, you know, you were saying before, it's just like how they wanted to be unique and creative by doing the drums that way, the way they did. It's like, can you imagine if for the latest album you're like, oh, I'm getting that creative kick. Fuck off, Terrence. I'd be like, wow, I'm loving this creative streak. And it's obvious, it's so cool because you were describing, so many things I noticed. You were describing how, how you were saying they, like, like all of them take hands in mixing, all of them take hands in doing everything on the album. So obviously this band was no inspiration of yours. So
exactly.
yeah, no, no, it is. Yeah, I mean this. So I guess the label you were talking about that they wanted to get rid of was Nuclear Blast.
No, I don't think it's
that's what it says here. Nuclear Blast.
Right.
Good old Nuclear Blast.
Ready.
Ah, well then, there you go. And what a cool studio name, Fear and Loathing Studios.
Yeah,
that's a cool name for a studio. Yeah. Come to Fear and Loathing Studios. If this album's not dark, that's studio probably. Fear and Loathing Studios. But it is interesting because like even though there's no official, I mean not on Wikipedia, but like All Music gave it a 2.5 out of 5. Some other place gave it 5 out of 5, 8.5 out of 10, 3 out of 5, fucking 5 out of 10, and 7.2. So it's like it's one of those albums where you're not going to satisfy everyone. It's one of those albums where it's just like, because going on a creative risk like this, obviously, yeah, you make the music you want to make for you, and that's why I always respect artists like Prince, who just fucking made his own. Just like fuck you all, and obviously people love him, some people hate him, some people in between about him, but it's just like in the same breath, it's just like these guys took a leap, and maybe not right now. I'm not the biggest fan of this, but because like I forgot what song it is. I think it's like I'm trying to remember. I think it was there's a song on here. I forgot which one it was, but I think it could be track 4 of the Spiral. So one of them where it has like halfway through the song it has like Daft Punk voice, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? I think I'm on the right song, and it's just like I don't know, like shit like that turns me off. I mean, turns me off on a metal album. Obviously, it turned me off when they did it on the latest Tool album, whatever it's called, Fear Inocrium. It turned me off on that too. There's a one song where they did that too. It's just like, I don't know, when metal try to mix with like weird fucking, not auto-tune, but like synthesizer voice, it's just like, what the fuck are you doing? This sounds goofy. And who knows, maybe when I'm not sober and I'll play it again, maybe it might sound cool, like alienistic. But just the way it is, it's just like, I remember that being stuck out like a sore thumb. Yeah, so it's just like certain things, it's just like kind of bugged me. But then again, first impressions, and I can definitely see myself going back to this eventually with a different, hopefully with a different mindset and giving it a go. And yeah, but for now, it's just like, yeah, it was a bit everywhere for me right now. But you know me, I always have to be honest.
Yeah, Fear and Loathing, just chatting about that place. That's in Stockholm, and honestly, man, another place that I absolutely love. The whole thing of Stockholm syndrome. It's true. Yeah. Like, I did not want to leave. I wanted to stay in Stockholm forever. We were there for 3 days. We had a break on the tour, and I swear, man, it was just the best place. We went to another place called Uppsala, just up the road from that, and I think there was some workings on the album up there as well. I don't know exactly what it was. It just rings a bell. But yeah, I don't know. Like, it's a funny one. They're one of these bands that have, put it this way, the measurement of their success is about their influence and what they've brought to the metal music in particular world, rather than the big numbers. It's kind of weird. Like they're like this enigma kind of band where they've made so many waves and paved the way for so many bands like Periphery, who we spoke about before, and they've done absolutely like serious amounts for the music world, where people, when they're writing or they're listening to music, it's not just about melody. Now there's a shit ton of melody in their songs as well, but it's mainly about the rhythmic aspect of it, and that's where it sounds mathematical. But rhythm is in here, man. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's what I love about these boys. They write these rhythms, and they write it real. It's technical to other people, but for them, it's not really technical. It's just the way their brains look at the music as a rhythmic thing. And the fact that Thomas, all his kicks are right on the riff, like right, like they are like absolutely locked in sync, and that's what gives them this big punchy sound. It's unreal. But just speaking about the vocals, you know, that I call it like a Transformers kind of voice. And the first time I heard that was on another album that Josh mentioned last week, was Around the Fur. I think it was Around the Fur. It was one of the Deftones songs, and Chino has this really cool kind of like robotic voice. And still to this day, as much as I know about the ins and outs of recording, I don't know how they do this robot transformer voice. And I think I'm not meant to know, because if I did, I'd probably put it on every fucking track. I don't know. And, you know, talking about space, I think this would have the spacing. But now that you've said it's more like Daft Punk, it's kind of put me off a little bit. I never thought of it like that. You may have ruined that for me, like, but sure. Anyway, but do you know what else? Do you know what else is amazing about this band? That there are actual students in colleges doing theses on the technical side aspect of their music. It's fucking crazy. Like that, there's so much going on inside of these songs that people can write a fucking thesis on it and not actually talk about the band and everything that we're chatting about. Like it's just unbelievable. Like, but yeah, I don't know. I'm curious now to look into my facts about the label. Just looking at my notes, I'm like, fuck, did I get that right or wrong? And they could have had like because like I think they're still signed with Nuclear Blast now. Doesn't matter. Anyway, just incredible musicians, incredible band, and I highly recommend you listen to Nothing and Obzen. Just they're a bit more as you go along on your travels sort of albums. This is, I don't know, I totally get you, bro. Like, you know, I like to, you know, I've said on the podcast, I like to meditate, and that's kind of like my way of like getting out of it. You know, it's kind of puts you into this like hallucinogenic kind of state. You know, when you've done it for like 20 years, it kind of becomes something that you can instantly get yourself into this like mashed up head state, and you see and feel a lot of things that you wouldn't normally. But I could definitely sit back with this album playing for start to finish and have that kind of vibe off it. You know, I totally get what you're saying there. Like, there's more to it. There's like this, like, oh, it's like right there in the third eye music. You know, like it's crazy cool. Like, I love it. I just think they're a gift. They're a gift from the gods.
Before we go into like shout outs and sponsorships, I remember because I was raised a Mormon. My parents still are heavy Mormons. My sister's on a mission, so like that's cool. My whole family's still Mormon. And I remember a few years ago I was with Dad, and like, because he's the one that got me into metal, Black Sabbath, Zeppelin, Floyd, all of it. And I remember we were just because he's a truck driver. I was in the truck with him one day, and I remember I think we were on some rock song. Actually, yeah, we're on some rock song and station, and he turned it down real quick, and he's like, oh, you've heard Dark Side of the Moon, right? And I'm like, yeah, obviously. And then he's like, have you ever heard that High? And he glared at me. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, what? It's Dark Side of the Moon. What do you think I have? You think? And actually, I have to tell this because it's a funny story. He probably doesn't remember because he has a terrible memory. But I remember one time we were driving home from work in his truck, and the Lynyrd Skynyrd song came on, the 10-minute one, the free, whatever it's called, the Lynyrd Skynyrd. I think it's Freebird. I forgot what it's called, but it's one of his favorite Lynyrd Skynyrd songs. And you know, it has like a 5-minute solo. It's 6 songs, and you know, he was so hyped because apparently it was the unedited version, and normally the radio plays the edited version. So he was like fucking excited. We're almost home. You know, so the whole 5-minute solo, not just the 1 minute cutout. So the whole 5-minute solo, and in the middle of the 5-minute solo, Mum calls. And he was so pissed. He was like, He's like, what? And she's like, can you get him? He was so sad that his like Leonard Skinner unedited solo was ruined. And like, I remember like thinking like, that would so be me if my favorite song came on and like,
Yeah.
man, that would piss me off too. Yeah. Anyway, two memories I just remembered. Yeah. So you want to start with the sponsorships?
Yeah, sweet man. Yeah, that's gas. I can relate to that too, because my dad was a truck driver as well, and I'd be out in the truck and I'm listening to tunes, but we had the old cassette tapes back then. But yeah, I can imagine that fucking going off. Freak. Funny, I was watching a guy last night. I forget his name. I was trying to find his name there. I wanted to give him a shout out. He's an old school geezer. He plays a lot of songs on TikTok, and I seen one of his videos come up on Facebook there last night, and he actually played Freebird on acoustic and sang it. But when it came to the solo of it, he was just like, it's a lot shorter without the solo. It's just like, because it was just him on an acoustic, like. But he played it off so well. It was brilliant. Like, I'll try and find him and give him a shout out next time. I thought it was brilliant. But yeah, so shout outs this week would be to none other than oh yes, I do. These lovely boys and girls and skull strings. just anybody wants to get a set of strings off either me or Cass, you can get our signature set. But if you want to just buy your standard lovely strings from them, you can give them a shout on their website, which is skullstrings.com. Excellent.
Is that you? Okay. Cool.
Nice.
I'll put it on the link above. So I got 2 shoutouts today. Well, technically 3 if you include Morgrot. But the first one, I want to shout out Mr. Tubbs Plumbing and Heating. So I'll keep it nice and short. Hopefully we have some fans from America, and more specifically, hopefully we have some listeners from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. A place I've always been interested in ever since there's this wrestling company called ECW, Extreme Championship Wrestling, back in the day. And they were based in Philadelphia, and their credit was always crazy. So always love Philadelphia. Anyway, if you're in Philadelphia and you need plumbing or heating sorted out, go to Mr. Tubbs Plumbing and Heating. I talk to him quite regularly. He's a very cool guy, very down to earth. Enjoys what he does, very passionate. So yeah, if you need plumbing services, you won't find anyone better, guaranteed. Now, that's you, Mr. Tubbs. Good old shout out. The second one is a new one. I want to shout out a company, Uncle Ron's Candle Company. Again, another workhorse of a guy starting his own company, this time making candles. So this, I'm fairly certain, delivers internationally. It's called Uncle Ron's Candle Company. I will put the link above. This guy makes candles with all different kinds of scents available. Everything from, he does burn boxes, candle care, he does everything from little air spray things with smells in it to wax to normal candles with all different kinds of smells. Anything you want, he can probably set up for you. He has one called Fuck Bugs, which is a mosquito repellent. I mean, that's pretty cool. Fuck Bugs. So yeah, real cool guy, really cool company. So go check it out, UncleRonsCandles.com. Like I said, the link will be above, and get yourself some sick candles. I've even heard he made a Mountain Dew candle once. Which
Nice.
is fucking sick. Like, I love Mountain Dew. So to have that going on, that would be sick. So yeah, those are my 2 for today.
Nice.
Good old sponsorships. Well, you know what time it is? Actually, it's actually interesting. I should probably, because I have a few bands that have like independent bands who have asked me to put their music into our podcast. I should change it up and put a song on the Devil Advocate part and have little snippet. Yeah. But in the meantime, we'll just stick with your horrendous. I mean, with your.
In the meantime, I have to do this more like a. Bit more of a polyrhythmic. You probably couldn't even hear it. The devil's advocate. The devil's advocate. Yeah.
Wow.
I made it extra bad today.
That was horrendous. I mean, amazing. So my worst track I'm gonna go on a limb and assume was I right with the paradoxical spiral? Was I right with the auto-tune part?
Was that the one?
All right, fuck it. The auto-tune song.
Yes.
Whatever song that was, I think that was the spiral. I'm going to assume I'm correct.
Yeah.
So it's only that one part that really pissed me off. Nothing else really stood out as bad to me. You know, dysfunctional, sure, all of the place maybe, but if I'm really nitpicking, it's just that Daft Punk sound that I just don't think belongs in metal to begin with. So just for that one tiny portion of the song, I'm putting that on there. It stuck out to me in the worst way. Now, for me, my favorite track was the last track, Some. And because on the song Some, the 7-minute and 17-second song, the last, 3-4 minutes of it had this, eerie, just very kind of post-rock, just very gloomy and, the same note over and over again, kind of I don't know. It's just I just pictured a slow death. That's just what I imagine in my head. Just the same note playing over and over again, real slow, real methodically, and just going over and over. So it was just really haunting. And the song itself, I think only has 5 5 lines. I don't think it has that many words, but it's just yeah. So very haunting track. I love it a lot. The whole song was good, but especially the last bit, just the way it haunts itself out from the middle, bottom middle to the end. Oh, it was pretty cool. It was a great way to finish the album, that's for sure. Yeah, so those are my.
Sweet. Yeah, that's great. I mean, we're 50-50 this week. It's been a while since we got some matching up, but yeah, I do think obviously it's logical picking a favorite track, but sure, that's what we do. And or because it's one musical piece, so but let's just call it sections. So my I'll do my least favorite first, just to get out of the way. My least favorite is Mind's Mirror, and yeah, it's the clean guitar bits. They're just a bit repetitive and borderline annoying for me because, I don't really like repetitiveness. I've said that before. I don't really like things going on too long. But, that's just my opinion. But like I said, these are just sections in a beautiful long piece of music. My favorite is definitely Some. I fucking love it. I love it. That was the one song, even though they're not songs, I kept going back to the last 13, part number 13. I kept going back and playing that bit over and over because the entire vibe of the song is just it goes from this existential, groovy, fucking mammoth thing to this sinister, thought-provoking kind of clean guitar, which is, it's real airy and like you said, it's haunting almost. But the song has 12 lyrics. Now it has exactly 12 lyrics and 4 riffs, and then a floaty space vibe just before the clean bit. So it's a magical piece of music. But also I had a couple of contenders that I need to mention. I actually wrote in my notes, love the Transformer style vocals on Mind's Mirror. It was Mind's Mirror that you didn't like. So, but I picked Mind's Mirror as my least favorite song as well. So actually, we're 100% this week. So yeah, we're 100% this week. That's very cool. Yeah. So yeah, I just didn't like the rest of the song around it. But favorite contender number 1 was Entrapment. I just loved the dragged it's kind of real the rain solo is sick. That's what I was telling you about earlier on. It's just loved it. There's all these crazy bends. And there's this cool thing that Meshuggah do that a lot of other bands don't do is a lot of bands do big bends, but they do big bends, but they do them slowly. It's just a real distinct sound. It's it's a real slow bend. And I don't know, it just sucks you in. It's fucking great. There's another track that I thought was also a contender, In Death Is Death. It's the most complete kind of song on it. If you were to turn them into songs, it actually sounds like the fullest piece. But Shred is also, again, Shred could actually be off Nothing, the 2 albums before. It just sounds great. Frederick's signature guitar is in that song. But no, it's just it's great. 100%. We need like balloons coming down or something when we do that.
Yeah, I'll try to organize it for next time. So it's been a long time, literally, at least for me, a long time since I've got to choose an album that I wanted to choose, because I've been going through guests, tons of guests, and then obviously they choose their album, which isn't a bad thing. I get to explore a new album, but this is the first time in I think months that I got to choose. And I was thinking about it, I'm like, you know what? I have so many albums always going through my head. Let alone just metal. I've got always albums, and obviously I can't recommend fucking anything with metal. So this is an album, a band I fucking name dropped must be since day one. It's a band that I listen to quite frequently, a band that whenever I'm feeling not quite sober, I normally tend to go to pretty often. A band that they're a Canadian band, and to me, whenever I think about music in Canada, this is the only band, because you know, like some places are just blessed with, for whatever reason, nothing but good music. Like Finland somehow never makes bad music. I don't understand how that's possible. But the Finnish always play good music, always good bands. Some places a bit more rare, and I feel like Canada, these guys are the only, in my opinion, that I've heard of, the only real masterful band coming from Canada. This is their first album, and it just, as soon as I heard this album, and I've repeated it all the time, like once a week. I'll play this album. It's just, and it never stops giving me chills. And I don't even know if you've heard this. You've definitely heard of this band, thanks to me at least bringing it up so much. But we are talking about next week. We're talking about the Canadian post-rock band Godspeed You Black Emperor.
Oh yes,
they are a you've probably heard of thanks to me, nonetheless.
I did, yeah.
Have you heard them at all?
Only you talking about them, bro. So I'm very.
This is going to make it more exciting.
Yeah.
Well, the album we're talking about is their 1998 debut album, and it's funny because the way the album's actually called on the cover, the album is actually titled. It's actually titled F#A# infinity sign, but what it's actually pronounced apparently is F# A# infinity.
So I was gonna say F#.
So yeah, it is an insane album with just, it's post rock. So if you're familiar with that subgenre, yeah. So these guys, especially for their first album, since then they've made, a lot of people say that the album after that, following this one, is another classic, and then they kind of fell off, I guess, or just go into that phase where they kind of, it's funny because a lot of people say that after the first two albums, they've kind of, for lack of a better word, turned over every stone that they can early. So it's like it's kind of rehashing the same shit. But I can't talk for those albums. I can only talk for the first two albums I've listened to, and this is one of them. And yeah, so it is just, I go back to this at least once a week, I swear. Yeah, so these guys are just, especially for the first album, especially since they were like living in like a fucking cheap ass condo, working with basically nothing. And once you hear it come out, how it came out, yeah. So yeah, it's a phenomenal album, and this is definitely one of those albums where you're going to want to have to sit down, try find a little bit of time by yourself, put some good headphones on, or at least a good surround system, with no disturbance, because this thing is going to take you to a whole other world, and I can't wait to talk about it next week.
Sick, great show, bro.
Your first time going.
Yeah, nice.
Well, that will be us next week. And yeah, as we always say on Sagas, same time, same place, or something.